Right before my mother-in-law's anniversary, I withdrew all the money and blocked the cards. My wife happily talked about what a luxurious car she would buy for her mom. But what happened the next day shocked everyone. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Michael Donnelly crouched beneath the ancient boiler in the hospital's basement, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Water dripped somewhere in the distance, a steady rhythm that had become background noise over 15 years. The wrench in his hand was slick with condensation, and he adjusted his grip, tightening the fitting one last turn. The boiler clanked and wheezed, then settled into its familiar hum. "That should hold," he muttered, wiping his forehead with the back of his wrist. His knees protested as he stood. 42 wasn't old, but 15 years of crawling under equipment, climbing ladders, and responding to emergency calls at 3 in the morning had left their mark. His lower back ached most mornings now, a dull throb that coffee and ibuprofen couldn't quite touch. Michael gathered his tools and headed for the stairs. His boots echoed in the concrete stairwell, each step measured and tired. The hospital hummed with life above him. Patients being wheeled to surgery, nurses trading shifts, doctors making rounds. He kept the machinery running that kept them all alive. Nobody noticed when everything worked. Everyone noticed when it didn't. That was the job. In the maintenance office, he logged the repair in the computer, the ancient keyboard clacking under his thick fingers. His supervisor, Dale, glanced over from his desk. Boiler again. Fitting was loose. Should be good for a while. Dale nodded, already turning back to his own paperwork. "You heading out?" "Yeah. Brooks got dinner waiting." "Lucky man." Michael didn't answer. He signed out, grabbed his thermos, and walked through the employee exit into the Tennessee afternoon. The summer heat hit him like a wall, thick and humid. His truck sat in the far corner of the lot, exactly where he'd parked it that morning at 6. The Ford was 12 years old, paint faded on the hood, but the engine was solid. He'd rebuilt the transmission himself 2 years ago. The drive home took 20 minutes. Cedar Ridge wasn't much, a town of 8,000 people spread across rolling hills and pine forests. The hospital was the biggest employer. After that came the lumber mill and a few small factories. People worked hard here, kept their heads down, paid their bills. Michael turned onto Maple Street and pulled into the narrow driveway beside a house that had seen better days. The white paint was peeling near the foundation. The porch sagged slightly on the left side where the support beam had rotted through last winter. He'd fixed it himself, jacking it up and pouring new concrete, but the wood was still warped. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in at once. But it was his. Every mortgage payment on time for 11 years. Every utility bill paid before the due date. The roof didn't leak. The plumbing worked. The AC struggled in the summer, but it kept things cool enough. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, letting the heat seep back into the cab. Through the window, he could see Brooke moving in the kitchen, her silhouette framed by the curtains. She was on the phone. Even from here, he could read her body language, the way she held her shoulders tight, the way she paced in small circles. "Paula." Michael grabbed his lunchbox and headed inside. The screen door creaked as it always did. He meant to oil those hinges for months now. Inside, the house smelled like roasted chicken and something sweet, maybe cornbread. His stomach growled. Brooke stood at the counter, phone pressed to her ear, nodding at nothing. She wore jeans and an old t-shirt, her brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. When she saw him, she gave that smile. The tight one, the one that didn't reach her eyes. "I know, Mom," she said into the phone. "I told you. Michael and I talked about it." They hadn't. Michael set his lunchbox on the counter and opened the fridge, pulling out a beer. The bottle was cold and sweating in his hand. He twisted off the cap and took a long pull, leaning against the counter as Brooke continued her conversation. "Anniversary." He caught fragments. Always fragments. Paula's voice carried even through the phone, sharp and insistent. "After everything I did for you." Brooke turned away slightly, lowering her voice. Michael drank his beer and stared at the calendar on the wall. July 19th. They had $200 in checking, maybe $600 in savings. Rent was due in 10 days. People expect a little respect. Michael walked to the bedroom and changed out of his work clothes. The bedroom was small, barely enough space for the queen bed and a single dresser. Their wedding photo hung on the wall, both of them younger, happier, standing outside the courthouse with Dale and his wife as witnesses. Brooke had worn a simple white dress. Michael had borrowed a suit from his cousin. Paula hadn't come to the wedding. When he walked back out, Brooke was off the phone. She stood at the stove, stirring something in a pot with more force than necessary. "Hey," he said. "Hey." She didn't look at him. Michael sat at the small table and finished his beer. The silence stretched between them, familiar and heavy. He could hear the clock ticking in the living room. A car passed outside. "Your mom okay?" he asked finally. "She's fine." What did she want? Brooke kept stirring. "Just checking in." Michael knew better than to push. Not yet. Not when she had that set to her jaw. He waited. Dinner was quiet. Chicken, green beans, cornbread. Brooke barely touched her plate. Michael ate slowly, watching her push food around with her fork. The chicken was good, seasoned the way he liked it, but it might as well have been cardboard for all the attention she was paying. "Brooke." She looked up. "What? What's going on?" "Nothing." "Don't do that." She set down her fork. "Do what?" "Lie to me." Her face tightened. "I'm not lying. Your mom wants something." "Michael." "She always wants something." Brooke stood abruptly, gathering her plate even though she'd barely eaten. She scraped the food into the trash and dumped the plate in the sink with more force than necessary. Water ran. Dishes clattered. Michael stayed seated. He'd learned over the years that pushing too hard just made her shut down completely. Better to give her space. Let her come to him when she was ready. But he knew what was coming. He always knew. Later that night, after the dishes were done and the leftovers were wrapped, Brooke finally spoke. They were in the living room. Michael sat on the couch with the TV on low. Some baseball game he wasn't really watching. Brooke was folding laundry that didn't need folding, smoothing out wrinkles that weren't there. "Mom's anniversary is coming up," she said without looking at him. Michael kept his eyes on the TV. "Yeah. 25 years since the divorce. That's not usually something people celebrate. You know what I mean?" Brooke folded the same towel twice. "It's been a quarter century since my dad left. She raised me alone, put me through school, made sure I had everything I needed." Michael had heard this speech before, word for word, in some cases. Paula had a way of planting these scripts in Brooke's head, and they came out fully formed, like she'd been rehearsing. "She's been through a lot," Brooke continued, moving on to a pair of jeans. "So have we," Michael said quietly. Brooke paused, her hands stilling on the fabric. "I know. She mentioned something." "Here it comes," Michael thought. "A car," Brooke said, the words rushing out. "Nothing crazy. Just something nice. Her Toyota's on its last legs, and with what money?" The question landed like a rock in still water. Brooke's hands tightened on the jeans. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe we could help a little." "A little? Don't do that." "Do what?" "Act like I'm being unreasonable." Michael finally looked at her. "Brooke, we have $800 in the bank. Rent's due in 10 days. The AC needs work. Your car needs new tires. We're not in a position to buy someone a car." "I didn't say buy. I said help." "How much is help?" Brooke didn't answer. She went back to folding, her movements jerky and defensive. Michael leaned back on the couch. His beer was warm now, sitting on the side table half finished. "Your mom doesn't need a car. She needs money, and she knows if she asks for money, I'll say no. So she asked for a car. That's not fair, isn't it?" Brooke's face flushed. "She's my mother, Michael, and she's been bleeding us dry for years." "She has not. 3 years ago, she borrowed $1,500 for her furnace. Never paid it back. That was an emergency. 2 years ago, she needed $800 for car repairs. Never saw that either. Michael, last year, she had a medical emergency that turned out to be elective dental work. $1,000. Also never paid back." Brooke threw the jeans down on the pile. "Why are you keeping score?" "I'm not keeping score. I'm keeping track. There's a difference. She's family. So am I." The words hung in the air between them. Brooke's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. She hated crying in front of him, saw it as weakness. "You don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. You didn't grow up the way I did. Your parents were together. They helped you. My mom did everything alone. She sacrificed. I know she did, Michael said, keeping his voice level. And I respect that. But her sacrifices don't obligate us to bankrupt ourselves. A car isn't bankrupting us. It is if we can't afford it. Brooke grabbed the laundry basket and walked out of the room. Michael heard the bedroom door close. Not a slam. Brooke never slammed doors, but a firm, final click. He sat alone in the living room, the baseball game droning on in the background. The commentators were discussing ERA and batting averages, their voices a dull wash of sound. Michael picked up his beer, found it warm and flat, and set it back down. This wasn't new. Every few months, Paula needed something. Every few months, Brooke came to him with that same tight smile and that same careful tone, like she was negotiating a hostage situation. And every time, Michael had to be the bad guy, the one who said no, the one who pointed out that they couldn't afford Paula's emergencies, because they were always emergencies, always urgent, always life or death, until they weren't. Michael turned off the TV and sat in the silence. The clock ticked. The AC rattled. Outside, someone's dog barked twice and then stopped. He thought about the Thanksgiving 3 years ago. They'd hosted Paula for the first time, a gesture of goodwill, an attempt to show her that Michael wasn't the enemy. He'd spent the morning cooking. Turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce from scratch. Brooke had set the table with her grandmother's dishes, the ones Paula had given her when she moved out. Paula had arrived late, wearing a designer coat that must have cost more than Michael made in a week. She'd walked through the house slowly, looking at everything with a critical eye. The worn carpet, the second-hand furniture, the cracks in the ceiling plaster that Michael kept meaning to fix. Finally, she'd sat at the table, accepted a glass of wine, and looked around one more time. "This is cute," she'd said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Temporary, right?" Michael had nearly dropped the carving knife. Brooke had laughed it off. "Mom, we've been here 3 years." "I know, honey. I just mean, you're young. You'll move up. Get something bigger. Nicer." Michael had carved the turkey in silence while Paula continued talking about real estate values and investment properties and how important it was to position yourself for success. He'd never forgotten that moment. The casual dismissal. The assumption that everything he'd worked for, everything he'd built, was just a stepping stone. Temporary. Not good enough. Now, sitting alone in that same living room, Michael made a decision. He pulled out his phone and opened a banking app. Their joint checking account showed $247.83. Savings showed $623.19. He logged into the credit card account. Balance, $1,842.76. Not terrible, but not great. Then he checked something he rarely looked at, the transaction history for the past year. Transfer to Paula Whitman, $200. Transfer to Paula Whitman, $150. Transfer to Paula Whitman, $300. Transfer to Paula Whitman, $175. The list went on. Small amounts, always from Brooke's personal checking account, the one she kept from before they got married. But Michael could see the pattern. Every transfer came right after payday. And every time, their joint savings took a hit a few days later when Brooke transferred money back to herself to cover expenses. She was robbing Peter to pay Paula. Michael closed the app and set his phone down. His jaw hurt from clenching. He stood, walked to the kitchen, and poured himself a glass of water. Drank it slowly, let the cold spread through his chest. Brooke had been sending her mother money for years. Small amounts. Amounts she thought he wouldn't notice. But they added up. Hundreds of dollars. Maybe thousands. All while Paula complained about their cute house and suggested Brooke had settled early and called Michael safe like it was an insult. He set the glass down carefully and walked to the bedroom door, pressed his palm against it. Inside, he could hear Brooke moving around, opening drawers, closing them. Michael didn't knock. Instead, he went back to the living room, sat down, and opened his laptop. If Paula wanted to play games with money, he could play too. He started with the joint savings account, transferred the entire balance to a new account, one only in his name, $623.19. Then he called the bank's automated line and put a freeze on their joint credit cards. Nothing dramatic. No maxed out balances or late payments. Just a temporary hold that required both parties to authorize any new charges. It took 20 minutes. When he was done, Michael closed the laptop and went to bed. Brooke was already lying down, facing the wall, pretending to sleep. He knew she was awake from the tension in her shoulders. The way her breathing was too controlled. He didn't say anything, just climbed under the covers and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, Paula would learn that assumptions came with consequences. The next morning started like any other. Michael's alarm went off at 5:30. He showered, dressed, made coffee. Brooke was still in bed, one arm thrown over her eyes. She'd probably been up late, worrying, rehearsing conversations in her head. Michael left without waking her. At work, he replaced a broken valve in the surgical wing, reset a circuit breaker that had tripped in radiology, and fielded 3 calls about the AC in the administrative offices. Standard Wednesday. Dale brought donuts at 10, and they ate in the break room, talking about the upcoming football season. "You following the Titans this year?" Dale asked, powdered sugar dusting his mustache. "When I can." Michael poured himself more coffee. "Don't catch many games." "Well, if you ever want to come over for Sunday, Marcy always makes too much food." "I'll keep that in mind." His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again and again. Dale raised an eyebrow. "You gonna get that?" Michael pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls from Brooke. 2 from a number he didn't recognize. 5 text messages. He opened the texts. "Brooke, call me." "Brooke." "Michael, where are you?" "Brooke." "Why isn't the card working?" "Unknown number." "This is Paula. Call me immediately." "Brooke, what did you do?" Michael put the phone back in his pocket. "Everything okay?" Dale asked. "Fine." Another buzz. Michael silenced it. The calls kept coming throughout the day. 15 in total. Michael didn't answer any of them. He worked through lunch, replacing worn gaskets in the kitchen's industrial dishwasher. The work was methodical, familiar. Unscrew. Remove. Clean. Replace. Test. At 3 o'clock, his phone rang again. This time, he answered. "Yeah. Where have you been?" Brooke's voice was tight, strained. "I've been calling all day." "Working." "Michael, the car didn't work." "Mom, I don't want to look at cars." "I know." Silence. Then, "You know." "Yeah." "What do you mean, you know?" "I froze the cards." "You what?" "Why would you?" Another voice in the background, sharp and insistent. "Paula." Michael couldn't make out the words, but he heard the tone. "Let me talk to him," Paula said. "Mom, just give me the phone." A shuffling sound. Then Paula's voice, clear and furious. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Michael walked out of the kitchen, away from the noise, and stood in a quiet hallway near the loading dock. "Hi, Paula." "Don't hi Paula me. You humiliated us. We were at the dealership, and the car declined. Do you have any idea how embarrassing?" "I didn't embarrass you," Michael said calmly. "You embarrassed yourself." "Excuse me. You assumed you could buy a car with our money without asking." "It's not your money, it's our money. Mine and Brooke's. Not yours." Paula's voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. "Listen to me very carefully. I raised that girl alone. I sacrificed everything for her. I worked 2 jobs while her worthless father disappeared. I put her through school. I made sure she had opportunities. And now that I need a little help, you're going to throw a tantrum and freeze cards like some kind of—" "I'm not throwing a tantrum," Michael interrupted. "I'm setting a boundary." "A boundary?" "That's right. You have no idea what I've been through. Well, I've sacrificed. You grew up with both your parents. You don't understand." "You're right," Michael said. "I don't understand. But I do understand that Brooke and I have bills. And I understand that we can't afford to buy you a car. I wasn't asking for." "Yes, you were. You're going to buy a car, put it on our credit, and then we'd be stuck with the payments. That's what you do. You create emergencies and expect us to pay for them. I have never. $1,500 for a furnace. $800 for car repairs. $1,000 for dental work. Want me to keep going?" Paula's silence was sharp enough to cut. "I didn't think so," Michael said. "You are controlling and small-minded and—" "Maybe, but I'm not a bank." "Put Brooke on the phone." "No. Put my daughter on the phone right now. She can call me if she wants to talk. But you and I are done." Michael hung up. His hands were shaking. Not from fear. from anger, from the sheer audacity of Paula calling him controlling while trying to drain their accounts. He stood in the empty hallway, breathing slowly, letting his heart rate settle. The phone rang again immediately. Paula. He declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Again. Declined. Finally, a text for Brooke. We need to talk tonight. Michael typed back. Okay. Then he went back to work. Brooke was waiting when he got home. She sat on the couch, arms crossed, jaw set. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. Not anymore. You made me look like a liar, she said before he could even close the door. Michael set his lunchbox down. Ow! I told her we'd talked about it. I told her we were thinking about helping. We weren't. I didn't know that, because we hadn't talked about it. Brooke stood, her hands balled into fists. You froze the cards. You moved the money. You didn't even tell me. Would you have stopped me if I did? That's not the point. That's exactly the point. Michael walked past her into the kitchen. He needed water. Something to do with his hands. Your mother called me controlling today. Michael, right after she tried to buy a car without asking us. She didn't. She was just looking. Brooke. Michael turned to face her. Stop. Stop what? Stop defending her. She's my mother, and she's using you. The words hit like a slap. Brooke stepped back, her face flushing. That's not true, she said, but her voice wavered. Isn't it? Michael pulled out his phone and opened the banking app. I looked at your account last night. You've sent her over $4,000 in the past year. Brooke's face went pale. Small amounts, Michael continued. 100 here, 200 there. But they add up. And every time you send her money, you take it back from our savings to cover expenses. So really, we've been paying her bills for a year. I was helping. You were hiding it, because I knew you'd react like this. Like what? Angry that you've been lying to me. I wasn't lying, I was. What do you call hiding money transfers? What do you call telling your mother we'd talked about something when we hadn't? Brooke's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. You didn't grow up the way I did. Your parents helped you buy your first car. They co-signed your first apartment. My mom did everything alone. I know. Do you? Do you really? Because it feels like you're punishing her for being a single mother. I'm not punishing her for being a single mother. I'm punishing her for being a leech. The word landed hard. Brooke flinched. That's cruel, she whispered. It's true. It's not. Brooke. Michael set his phone down on the counter. His voice was quiet now, drained of anger. I work every day, 50, 60 hours a week sometimes. Maintenance calls at 2 in the morning. Weekends. Holidays. I don't complain. I don't ask for credit. I just do it. Because that's what it takes to keep this house. To keep us fed. To keep the bills paid. I know that. Do you? Because it feels like every time we start to get ahead, your mother has an emergency. And every emergency costs us hundreds of dollars we don't have. And I'm tired, Brooke. I'm tired of working myself to the bone so Paula can have nice things while calling me safe and saying our house is cute. Brooke sank back on the couch. She didn't mean it like that. Yes, she did. Michael. She looks down on us. On me. She thinks you settled. She's told you that, hasn't she? Brooke didn't answer. She has, Michael said. Multiple times, probably. And you defend her every time. You make excuses. You say she's just worried. She's just protective. She's just whatever. But the truth is, she doesn't respect me. She doesn't respect us. And she's been taking advantage of that for years. That's not fair, isn't it? Brooke pulled her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. She looked small, young, like the girl he'd married at the courthouse 11 years ago. What do you want me to do? She asked quietly. I want you to choose. Choose what? Me or her? Brooke looked up, her eyes wide. That's not. You can't ask me to do that. I just did. She's my mother, Michael. I can't just cut her off. I'm not asking you to cut her off. I'm asking you to stop letting her drain us. It's the same thing. No, it's not. You could talk to her, visit her, have a relationship, but you can't keep giving her money we don't have. And you can't keep lying to me about it. Tears spilled down Brooke's cheeks. I didn't mean to lie, but you did. I was trying to keep the peace by destroying ours. Brooke buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. Michael wanted to go to her, to sit beside her, and pull her close the way he used to. But he couldn't. Not now. Not until she understood. I love you, he said quietly, but I won't be a doormat. Not for Paula. Not for anyone. Brooke didn't respond. Michael walked to the bedroom and closed the door. 3 days passed in cold silence. Brooke slept on the couch. Michael went to work. They moved around each other like ghosts, occupying the same space but existing in different worlds. On the fourth night, Brooke finally spoke. Mom wants to come over and talk. Michael was at the table, eating leftover pizza straight from the box. No, Michael, no. You won't even hear her out? What's there to hear? She'll apologize without meaning it. She'll promise to pay us back. She'll cry and say, I'm tearing the family apart. And then, in a few months, she'll need something else. Brooke's jaw tightened. You're being unreasonable. I'm being realistic. She's my mother. You keep saying that like it means something. It does. Not to me. Not anymore. Brooke grabbed her jacket. I'm going to see her. Okay. You're not going to stop me? No. You're not even going to try to... To what? Convince you to stay? Beg you to see my side? Michael shook his head. I've said everything I need to say. What you do now is up to you. Brooke stared at him, her face a mix of anger and hurt and confusion. I don't even know who you are right now. I'm the same person I've always been. You just didn't want to see it. She left without another word. The door didn't slam. It just closed. Quietly. Finally, Michael finished his pizza alone. Brooke stayed at Paula's that night, and the next night, and the one after that. She texted to let him know she was okay, but there was no warmth in the messages. Just facts. Just updates. Michael didn't chase her. Didn't call. Didn't show up at Paula's door demanding she come home. He went to work. Came home. Fixed dinner. Watched TV. The house felt bigger without her. Emptier, but also quieter. Calmer. The tension that had been building for months, years, maybe was gone. On the seventh night, Paula showed up. Michael was on the porch, drinking a beer and watching the sun set behind the trees. The Ford sat in the driveway, engine ticking as it cooled. He'd just gotten home from a double shift. Paula's car pulled up to the curb, a newer Toyota, not the dying one she'd claimed needed replacing. She got out slowly, dressed in slacks and a blouse, her arms crossed like she was walking into battle. Michael, she said as she approached. Paula, we need to talk. Do we? She climbed the porch steps without being invited. Michael didn't stand. He just sipped his beer and waited. You turned my daughter against me, Paula said, her voice sharp. No, I didn't. She's staying with me because she's afraid to come home. Because you've been. I've been what? Controlling. Manipulative. You froze her out financially. I froze us out financially. Joint accounts, Paula. Mine and hers. Not yours. Paula's face flushed. You humiliated me at that dealership. You humiliated yourself. You tried to buy a car without asking. Without permission. Without money. Brooke said we could. Brooke lied. We never discussed it. Paula's hands clenched into fists. She's my daughter. After everything I did for her, she owes me. She doesn't owe you anything. I raised her alone. So you keep saying, do you have any idea what that was like? Working 2 jobs? Scraping by? Making sure she had everything she needed. I don't, Michael said calmly. And I respect what you did. But that doesn't give you the right to drain her bank account. I'm not draining. Over $4,000 last year. Small amounts. Always after payday. Always followed by Brooke taking money from our savings to cover the shortfall. Paula's mouth opened, then closed. For a moment, she just stood there, exposed and furious. I was going to pay it back, she said finally. Were you? Yes. When I could. You can't, Paula. You never could. Because you don't have the money. You just have the need. And every time Brooke gives you a little, you need a little more. And she gives it because she feels guilty. Because you remind her every chance you get that you suffered, that you sacrificed, that she owes you. That's not. It is. It's exactly what you do. And I'm done watching it happen. Paula stepped closer, her voice dropping. You are small. You are ungrateful. You don't understand what family means. Maybe not. But I understand what boundaries mean. Boundaries. Paula laughed bitterly. Is that what we're calling it now? That's what I'm calling it. You're isolating her, making her choose between her mother and her husband. She's choosing herself, Michael said. Or she would, if you'd let her. Paula shook her head. You don't deserve her. Probably not. She settled for you. Maybe she did. And now you're punishing her for it. Michael finally stood. He wasn't a tall man, but he had 30 pounds on Paula and years of manual labor in his frame. He didn't move toward her. Didn't need to. I'm not punishing anyone, he said quietly. I'm just not paying your bills anymore. If that makes me the villain in your story, fine. I can live with that. Paula stared at him, her jaw working like she was chewing on words too bitter to spit out. Brooke will see through you eventually, she said. Maybe. But until then, she's staying with you. So congratulations, Paula. You finally got what you wanted. What's that? Her undivided attention. No distractions. No husband getting in the way. Just you and her, the way you've wanted it for years. Paula's face twisted. You're a bastard. Probably. But I'm an honest one. She turned and walked down the steps without another word. Her car door slammed. Engine started. She pulled away fast enough to leave rubber on the pavement. Michael sat back down and finished his beer. The sun was gone now, just streaks of orange and purple fading into night. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. A screen door creaked. Life went on. He felt lighter. The divorce papers arrived 6 weeks later. Michael sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope. Official. Legal. Final. He opened it slowly, reading through the boilerplate language. Irreconcilable differences. No-fault dissolution. Clean split. Brooke wanted half the house value. Half the retirement. Half of everything they'd built together. Michael signed the papers without argument. They met once at a lawyer's office in town. Brooke looked thinner, tired. Her hair was shorter, cut in a way that made her look older. She wouldn't meet his eyes. How's Paula? Michael asked as they waited for the lawyers to finish reviewing the documents. Fine. She get that car? Brooke's jaw tightened. Michael, don't. Just asking. She's managing. Good. Silence settled between them. The lawyers murmured in the corner, pointing at clauses and paragraphs. Outside, traffic hummed past. I didn't want this, Brooke said quietly. Michael looked at her. Didn't you? No. I wanted us to work. I wanted you to understand. I did understand. That was the problem. Brooke finally met his eyes. If I cut her off, would you try again? Michael considered the question. Really considered it. He thought about the years of defending Paula. The years of hidden transfers and manufacture emergencies. The years of hearing, you don't understand, and she's my mother, and you're being unreasonable. He thought about what it would take to rebuild. The trust that had been shattered. The resentment that had calcified in his chest. He shook his head. No. Why not? Because you didn't choose me when it mattered. Brooke's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. The lawyers called them over. Forms were signed. Assets were divided. The house would be sold. Proceeds split evenly. The retirement accounts would be divided. Everything neat. Everything legal. Walking out, Brooke paused at the door. I loved you, you know. I know. Did you love me? Yeah, Michael said. I did, but not anymore. Michael thought about how to answer that. The truth was complicated. He still cared about her. Still wanted her to be okay. But love? The kind that made you fight for someone? The kind that made you sacrifice and compromise and work through the hard things? No, that was gone. I don't think it matters anymore, he said. Brooke nodded slowly. Then she walked away. Michael watched her get into a car, not hers. Paula's Toyota, the one that didn't work a year ago. He drove home alone. The house sold 3 months later. Michael moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, but it was clean and quiet and entirely his. No mortgage, no memories, no tension hovering in the air like smoke. He kept working. Same job, same hospital, same co-workers. Dale asked once if he was okay, and Michael said yeah. Dale didn't push. That was one of the things Michael appreciated about him. He knew when to leave things alone. Brooke moved in with Paula permanently. Michael heard through Dale's wife, who heard from someone at the grocery store, who heard from someone at church. Small town. Everyone knew everyone else's business. Paula's Toyota broke down 6 months after the divorce. Engine trouble. Transmission issues. The same problems she claimed to have before. Brooke bought her a used Honda with money from the house sale. Michael heard that too. He didn't feel vindicated. Didn't feel smug or satisfied. just tired, and maybe a little sad. Not for himself, for Brooke, for the future she'd chosen. A year passed. Michael settled into his life. The apartment became home. He bought a new recliner, started cooking more, learned to enjoy the silence. On weekends, he fixed things for Dale and his wife, replaced their water heater, installed new gutters. They paid him with dinner and gratitude. He dated a little. Nothing serious. A woman from the hospital cafeteria, a friend of a friend. But nothing stuck. He wasn't sure he wanted it to. One evening, his phone buzzed. A message from a number he didn't have saved, but recognized anyway. "Brooke, how are you?" Michael stared at the message for a long time. He could ignore it, delete it, pretend he'd never seen it. But that felt petty. Small. He typed back, "Fine. You?" "Brooke, okay." "Brooke, can we talk?" "Michael, about what?" A long pause. The three dots appeared and disappeared several times. "Brooke, Mom's been asking for money again. More than usual. I don't know what to do." Michael set the phone down and walked to the window. Outside, the parking lot was mostly empty. A couple walked past, holding hands. A cat darted between cars, chasing something Michael couldn't see. His phone buzzed again. "Brooke, you were right. About everything. I'm sorry." Michael picked up the phone. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He could say a lot of things. Could offer advice. Could invite her over to talk. Could open the door to reconciliation. But he didn't. "Michael, I'm sorry you're going through that." "Brooke, do you think we could try again?" There it was. The question he'd been expecting. The question she'd asked once before in the lawyer's office. "Michael, no." "Brooke, even if I cut her off?" "Michael, even then." "Brooke, why not?" Michael thought carefully about how to answer. He didn't want to be cruel. Didn't want to hurt her more than necessary. But he needed to be clear. "Michael, because you didn't choose me when it mattered. I can't spend my life wondering when you'll stop choosing me again." The three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then stopped. No response came. Michael set his phone down and went back to the window. The couple was gone now. The cat had disappeared. Just empty pavement and street lights and the quiet hum of life moving forward. He felt at peace. 2 years after the divorce, Michael sat on the balcony of his apartment with a beer and a book. Summer was fading into fall, the air just cool enough to need a light jacket. Work had been good. He'd been promoted to senior maintenance supervisor. Better pay, better hours, more responsibility. Dale retired and threw a party. Michael went, ate too much barbecue, listened to Dale tell stories about the old days. Met Dale's daughter, who was visiting from Nashville. She was funny, smart, worked in marketing. They talked for an hour about nothing important and everything that mattered. She asked for his number. He gave it. They went to dinner a week later. Then another dinner. Then a movie. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. Just easy. Comfortable. One evening, she asked about his ex-wife. They were sitting at a diner, splitting a piece of pie. "Do you still talk to her?" she asked. "No." "Do you miss her?" Michael thought about it. "Sometimes I miss who I thought she was." "What does that mean?" "I miss the person I married. The person I thought I knew. But I don't miss who she actually was. If that makes sense." She nodded slowly. "It does." "Does it bother you that I was married?" "No. Everyone has a past." She took a bite of pie, then added, "Did she cheat?" "No. Nothing like that." "Then what happened?" "She chose her mother over me." The woman raised an eyebrow. "That's an interesting way to put it. It's the truth. Most people would say they grew apart, or wanted different things." "We didn't want different things," Michael said. "She wanted to keep everyone happy. I wanted to be happy. And you couldn't do both?" "Not with her mother in the picture." They finished the pie in silence. Michael wasn't sure if he'd said too much, revealed too much damage. But the woman just smiled. "Well," she said, "I don't have a mother who needs rescuing. So I think we'll be okay." Michael smiled back. 3 years after the divorce, Michael got a message from Dale's wife. Paula had passed away. Heart attack. Quick. Probably painless. The funeral was in 2 days. Michael wasn't sure if he should go. He hadn't spoken to Brooke in over a year. Hadn't seen Paula in longer. But Dale's wife said Brooke had asked if he'd be there. He thought about it for a day, then decided to go. The funeral was small. A handful of people. Some relatives Michael vaguely recognized. A few friends from Paula's work. Brooke stood near the casket, accepting condolences with the same tight smile Michael remembered. When she saw him, Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise. Relief. Maybe gratitude. "You came," she said. "Yeah. Thank you." Michael nodded. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay. It's hard. I'm sure." They stood in awkward silence. Around them, people murmured and hugged and shared memories. Michael had none to share, or none worth sharing. "She was asking about you," Brooke said finally. Near the end. Was she felt bad about how things went. Michael doubted that, but he didn't say so. Let Brooke have her narrative. Let Paula rest with some dignity. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said. Brooke's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry for mine too." Michael understood. She wasn't talking about Paula. "Take care of yourself," he said. "You too." He left after the service. Didn't stay for the reception. Drove home through the quiet streets of Cedar Ridge and thought about how strange it was that Paula's death felt like someone else's problem now. Not his burden, not his grief, just a closed chapter in a book he'd finished reading years ago. 5 years after the divorce, Michael married Dale's daughter in a small ceremony at the courthouse. Same courthouse where he'd married Brooke. Different woman, different life. They bought a house together. Not big, not fancy, but theirs. Built on honest conversation and shared decisions and respect that went both ways. Sometimes Michael thought about Brooke, wondered if she was okay, if she'd learned the lessons he'd learned, if she'd found someone who made her happy without demanding she choose. He hoped she had, but he didn't reach out, didn't check, didn't look back, because some stories don't end with apologies or reconciliation or dramatic reunions. Some stories end with boundaries and distance and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you stood your ground. That was enough. 7 years after the divorce, Michael sat on his porch, a real porch, not a sagging one, with his wife beside him and a cup of coffee in his hand. The sun was rising over the trees, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. His truck sat in the driveway, older now, but still running. He'd rebuilt the engine himself over a weekend. Inside, the house was quiet. No tension, no hidden debts, no manufactured emergencies. Just peace. His wife leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're thinking about something. Just remembering. Good or bad? Neither. Just remembering." She squeezed his hand. "Well, stop remembering and finish your coffee. We got that thing at Dale's at noon." Michael smiled. "I know." They sat together as the sun climbed higher, and Michael realized something he'd always known but never quite articulated. Some victories aren't loud. They don't come with fanfare or vindication or the satisfaction of being proven right. They come quietly, in the space where anxiety used to live, in the calm where chaos used to reign, in the freedom to say no and mean it and not apologize for it. That was the real win. Not forcing Brooke to change, not making Paula pay, not getting the last word or the moral high ground. Just a simple, profound victory of walking away from people who didn't value you and building a life with people who did. Michael finished his coffee, set the cup down, stood and stretched. "Ready?" his wife asked. "Yeah," he said. "I'm ready." And he was.